a rule like 65 games need to be played in order to win an MVP or Defensive Player of the Year All-NBA. Guys didn't face those rules before.
So my question actually around this, because you have commented on this and you said it was a bullshit rule.
So NBA players are complaining about the 65-game rule that is now in effect. So for y'all that are uninformed, to win any accolade or season award, you have to play a minimum of 65 games in a season. And there's contract implications with that. Players have incentives in their deals for all NBA teams and awards. So this does affect their pockets. But 65 games out of an 82-game season, that is not much to ask. I don't think that's ridiculous at all. If you don't play 65 games in a season, you shouldn't win a season award because you didn't play most of the season. And when I see these entitled, whiny NBA players complain about the 65-game requirement, it makes me chuckle how soft this current generation of NBA player is, especially in comparison to the older guys. I know we're not in the 80s. I know we're not in the 90s. I know we're not even in the early 2000s when you had monsters like Kobe Bryant go out there, give the same effort whether it was game 1 or game 82 in the schedule, because he understood the fan is the most important thing. And that's something some of these spoiled athletes need to realize. Without the fans, without their support, it's just a game. And you are nowhere near as profitable as you are now. The athletes are important. They're talented. They're superstars. I get that. Without them, the game doesn't get played. But without the fans, there's no monetary value in the sport. And if the players want to blame somebody for this rule getting implemented in the first place, they can look in the mirror and blame themselves, because load management is a crock of shit. I'm completely fine if a player is banged up, sick. Yeah, take a game off. But when you have NBA players, pro athletes who dedicate their lives to be in the best shape they possibly can, can't play a goddamn back-to-back, I think we're getting to a point where it's a little ridiculous. Yeah, have a few games off in the season to rest. Rest a couple games before the playoffs if you are seeded pretty high. I can understand that philosophy. But when you're going out of your way to sit players that are otherwise healthy for quote-unquote load management, I just think that's foolish. There has been plenty of moments over the last few years where a kid would be going to a game, supporting the hometown team, but there's a player on the opposing team they'd be excited to see, get to the arena, parent probably spending at least a couple $100 on the whole experience. You sit down, and just before tip-off, what do you find? One of the star players of the opposing team is taking a night off. It just robs the fan of seeing a spectacular athlete in person. And it was happening so frequently, the NBA had to make this rule a thing, because it was getting out of hand. Adam Silver said something extremely interesting on a Pat McAfee podcast recently. This is what he had to say about load management.
About the fact that load management was not working well for this league. I mean, there's a whole separate issue as to whether even there's sound science behind it, whether it even works, frankly.
So if there is indeed data saying that load management really doesn't do much, that is extremely interesting to see. But at the end of the day, this is a product that is powered by the fans. And once you lose them, you lose everything. 65 games is not a ridiculous game amount to ask, especially when you consider the people that watch your sport go to work every single day, and if they miss even a few days of work, they could end up getting fired. So how do you think it makes the fans feel when you have these entitled brats complaining about having to play a game, whereas they could get fired if they missed 17 days of work in a year? I'd like to know your thoughts down below in the comments section. What do you think of the 65 game requirement? I'm Paul from TSP. I'll see you in the next one.